All right, we are back. Play it forward. Alexandra Hidalgo, nominated by Leah Yanatan, and your film. You are a filmmaker, and the film we'll be talking about is Teta. All right. So Teta translates to
Boob.
boob. Okay. I like that title. It's certainly very appropriate about your film. The inspiration, the first question for you is, where did you get the emotional inspiration to make this movie?
So the film chronicles my 22 months nursing my second son, Santiago, as a working mother. I'm a filmmaker. I'm also a professor at Michigan State University. And the inspiration from the film came from the fact that when I was nursing my first son, my first child, William, who was 2 and some years older than the first one, I felt this very deep bond and love and thrill of the experience of nursing this baby. But I was in the middle of finishing my PhD at Purdue University, and I had to do my dissertation, and I don't know, we filmed moments here and there, but it wasn't till after I'd been nursing him for, like when the tail end of his nursing experience, that I thought, wow, wouldn't it have been lovely to have captured this bond that I feel with this little boy and that he feels with me. But of course, by then it was done. So, or almost done. And then it made no sense. So when I got pregnant with my second child, by then I was a professor and I was working towards tenure, which involves getting many things published and so on and so forth. I thought, I'm going to reward myself for getting articles out and whatever, finishing my big projects by working on this film and capturing this bond that is so vital to me. So it came from love and from, like, luckily I had 2 kids, so I was able to sort of, with the second one, decide to capture it.
Yeah. So, I like to keep digging at the questions a little bit before we move on to the next question. And I'll let you know a little bit about myself. So, we have, my wife and I have a child who's going to be turning 3 soon. We had a home birth. I caught her, actually. That was kind of unintentional. And my wife is still nursing. So, I know very intimately, and it's very fresh, waking up every 2 hours in the middle of the night and what happens to mommy brain, and, and the extreme commitment that it is, and, doing it with 2 children so closely and in age. And so that's kind of my perspective on the film. And then going back to the question and just kind of trying to pry a little more into what you said, bond. That bond is the critical word. And you sort of bookend or frame the movie with your own childhood experience with your own mother, who, against popular wisdom or conventional thinking, decided to nurse you, and the bond that you have. And film making and storytelling is, there's a relationship. It's there, with self, with others, with spirit, with nature. There's some relationship that creates the dynamic for the plot, the message that we'll be talking about shortly. So that bond, can you, that kind of that secret landscape in your own world, when you say bond, what do you mean?
You, for the film, or, I mean, there's all sorts of bonds, right? So I
For
mean,
the
I'll talk
film.
about for the
Yes.
film, for
For you
the
and your child. That.
mother and chat. You know, it's funny. Santiago is now 7 years old. He will be 8 in July. And to this day, he drinks, like if I'm around and he's thirsty, he will only drink from my water glass or from my water bottle.
Wow.
Like he will come from upstairs where he's in his room downstairs,
Wow.
drink from my water, or he will come from the
Yeah.
basement and drink. Like he and it's not so, and you know, William, his older brother who's now 10, makes fun of him about it, and I'm like, just let him, right? Because this, you know, like this is that expression of connection and love was so profound, and he doesn't even know why. Like if you ask him why you're drinking from mommy's glass, I don't know what in the world he would say, but you know, it's just this moment, like of, yes, connecting back to something that was so meaningful to him as he was growing up. And I love it. He's a very cuddly, you know, person who's always wants to be in contact. If I'm around, he just has to be there. And I think that all comes from the nursing and the love that comes with the nursing, and then all the other things that are around it, right? It's interesting because as they get older, like with the beauty of nursing for me was that there was no problem bad enough that I couldn't fix by just nursing them. Like anything that would happen when they were nursing, I was just like, here.
Right.
And then they would calm down. And that is not something I can do now for my 10-year-old and my 7-year-old. I no longer have a magic elixir that will make all problems go away. But it allows them to trust me that when I say something or when I attempt to help them navigate the world as little people, that I mean it, that I'm in their corner, that you know. So I don't know, it's a weird, bonds are, as a parent, are interesting, right? Because at first you really are their all, and then and you have so much control over what they're exposed to, if your kid is healthy, by the way, because if your kid is unhealthy, there's a whole other things that you don't have control over. Our kids, were fortunate, are healthy, so basically we just gave them all the love and all the happiness and all the attention, but we also were like, no, you're being difficult right now, so you're going to go, you know, calm down for a while. But I don't know, eventually they go into the real world and you have way less and less and less control. But I think if they know that you love them, and if they feel that trust in you, you can help them to the, or they will at least listen to what you have to offer as they try to navigate the world. So
I think the trust is a critical thing that you hit upon. That is a part of that connection. And it's interesting. There's a very famous psychological study that was done many years ago. And it's, you know, in textbooks and psychology courses, introductory psychology courses. And I think it's B.F. Skinner, who was a researcher, and you may have heard of it. It's they have two baby monkeys, and they have two poles with a simple wire mesh. And so one wire mesh has fur on it,
yeah,
and the other doesn't, but it has milk.
Mm-hmm.
So it's interesting that the babies preferred the milk. Mm-hmm. And what they ended up doing also is attaching to the fur, but drinking off the milk. So, you know, these survival needs kind of translate into psychological survival that we need.
But for me, the nursing went very far beyond nourishment, right? Because eventually after like 6 months, they don't really, you could, after a year, the benefits of nursing are more emotional, right? Like eventually they're eating and so on and so forth. But that said, like having that ability to calm the kid down, to sort of give them that sense of like, you are loved. That's what it felt like, right? Like you,
Mm.
um, which,
Yeah,
so I think nature had a plan that yes, we were going to like nourish our kids that way, but also we were going to give them, like, nourishment is emotional and nourishment is a lot of other things, not just nutrition.
for sure.
So
Sure. Cool. So the second question is, um, when you were making the movie, and you can, this two-part question, and then when you finished making the movie, so you can address both. What was the meaning message? What was the message of the movie for you?
I mean, I made this for nursing mothers. Well, actually, let's back up. I made it for pregnant women and their partners so that they would decide to give nursing a try. Like my goal for this film was, you're pregnant, check this out, and hopefully it will inspire you to, give nursing a try. And nursing is hard for a lot of reasons. It does hurt, like the first few weeks it hurts, it just does, but it doesn't hurt afterwards. Also, if you're a 9 to 5 person, especially now post-pandemic, where people are going back, more and more people are going back to the office, then it means pumping, and not all the businesses are willing to do it, to help you pump and have a good room where you can do it. There's all of these sort of obstacles that we in the US in particular, but around the world, have placed around nursing, right? And then there's the women for whom it just like, it does, like they're not producing enough milk, and then the doctors are like, no, formula, there's all of these things that complicate nursing. And I respect them all, and I think they're real. So I made this film to be like, well, just at least give it a try, like, and so that hopefully when you're faced with these, not to mention, by the way, the fact that if you, and again, I didn't have this problem, but you can be nursing in public and people can like come after you and throw you out of places. I mean, there's all of these things that we as a society, for some reason, do to make nursing mothers' lives so difficult. And I wanted to, understanding that, just sort of provide a pitch that said, I know that it has all those things, but oh my God, the bond that you will have with your kid is so powerful. So just give it a go. So that was the message. And the funny thing was that, there's no like film festivals for nursing, for pregnant women or whatever.
Right.
So I went, we would travel with it and the boys would be there. And of course the boys got a good kick out of it because, they were like, oh, look,
we're stars.
Yeah. But it was interesting because then I'd have all sorts of, like, I'd have older women who would come in and talk about how it reminded them of their nursing experience and so on. But my favorite was like young, or the least expected of them was like single men in their like 20s who were like, I loved your film, it was so touching and whatever. And I was like, you are so far from my audience, it isn't even funny. But for them, somehow they were moved by it too. So
well, they were little boys once,
I guess, but I think that, people did. I don't think, none of them, which would have been interesting, none of them were like, I remember nursing, or anything. It was just like, they were just, I had these 2 women filmmakers who were screening at the same festival as me. We were part of like a thing of shorts, come up to me and they said, we would have loved to have grown up with you as our mother. Your house seems like an amazing place to grow up in. And I was like, oh my God. It's so lovely. So I don't know. I mean, I think the message was literally, please, 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 society is doing all these things to make it really hard for you to nurse. here are the benefits for it, give it a try if you can. But then it ended up having, with the audience, as things films always do, it connected in different ways, and it was more a message about familial love, I think, and sort of the benefits of being part of a family, and that, you know, everybody's doing their best to love each other and be nice to each other. So
That's cool. Yeah. And, you know, should really, I was thinking, we should give you credit for the courage that it took to be very comfortable and free and liberal with, you know, shots of you breastfeeding. You know,
yeah,
especially the pump. That was because I've seen pumps, but not one quite like that one. The double pump was interesting. And then your husband, you know, your husband for, you know, it's, I think, you know, a lot of people don't talk about what happens when you have a baby. You know, oh, it's wonderful, it's one of the babies are blah, 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 but they don't talk about the realities. And for husbands, oftentimes, especially with nursing mothers, you know, husbands are on the sideline and
mm-hmm.
they're just kind of watching and, you know, cleaning and cooking and doing whatever they can to help, and they don't have the bond that, you know, is developing, that they don't know that kind of depth. I was lucky, you know, we did the whole attachment parenting thing, and you know, I held her in a pouch for like 8 hours for, you know, 10 hours a day for a year. So I mean, but yeah, I still know what it's like to feel like you're missing out, you know, on a really special experience. And, you know, your husband definitely came across as a very mature man who is humble and serving of your relationship and his children and his family. So I can see why the audience felt that.
He's funny. Like, I think, and your kid is 3, so, and your kid is still nursing, but he used to say, so when we had William, again, I was a PhD student at Purdue, and I was working on my dissertation, and he had a full-time job, and he would come home, you know, at like 6, and I'd had the baby all, and I'd be like, here, and then on top of that, he had to like make dinner, and he had to
Right.
do all the, but I was like, hi, here he is. And sometimes the kid would be like really upset. William would be like,
Oh yeah.
and I'd be like, yes, I'll nurse him. But sometimes I was like, I'm sorry, you guys deal with this, because, you know, I have whatever PhD things to do, because I was also teaching anyway. But it's funny because he used to call himself to the boys, the guy who lives with mom. That's, he was like, the guy who lives with mom.
Right.
But now that they're 7 and 10, they are just as bonded to him as they are to me,
Yeah.
right? Like, there's all of these rituals that they've developed, and all of these
Right.
ways
Sure.
in which they relate to each other. So even though, yes, I think at the very beginning, yeah, they're very attached, and especially with mine, who would not take the bottle. So no, you
Right.
know, like, I was the only one who had the magic milk. I think that evens out. And we do different things, right? There's different things that we give to the kids. He's bringing a lot of rings to them right now, and you know, they love and he has all these games where he like messes with them in ways that I would never, but they love it. They're like, please, like, chase us around and be a monster. Whereas I'm a lot more like gentle and like, come and let me give you kisses. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think for all those fathers out there who are like, will the
Yeah.
kid ever, I'm like, oh yeah, the
Don't
kid will
worry.
love you just as
Yeah.
much.
Yeah.
But it might take a couple years for that to really flourish.
Yeah. Cool.
But
Cool.
my husband, you know, he shot it, right? He shot
Yeah. Yeah.
film, and he hates it. He hates shooting.
Oh, really?
Oh yeah, because he's like, it makes him so nervous, and he's not training it, but I sort of taught him. And he's always like, okay, we're gonna shoot something, and then he's like, I know you're okay, tell me what did I mess up? And I'm like,
Right. Right.
and he never will stand up with me. It's funny, like, we toured with this one, and we're making another film together, and I'm like, will you stand up with me and talk to audiences? And he's like,
Oh man.
please do not. He hates speaking in public, but
Yeah.
he also loves the films. Like, he's
Yeah.
very happy. He loves the films. but it's a real labor of love on his part to actually pick up that camera because he doesn't like it.
He seems like a great guy.
He's
Yeah.
marvelous.
Yeah. So, last question is, since making the film and since it's been a few years, but reflecting on the film, the process of making on the film, working on the film with your husband, how have you changed? How have you been changed by the film?
By this particular film, um, what happened to me with this film is that it was this, it was a great experience to tell this small film, because it's tiny, right? It's not tiny, I mean, it's 25 minutes, but it's a very small story, right? It's like we see this baby be born, and then we see him grow up, and then we see him stop nursing, and then we see him sort of develop some sense of independence post nursing, and that's all it is. And the possibility of telling a small story that also happens over time. My film that I had made before that, everything had happened beforehand. So I just had people telling the stories of the things that had happened. And one of the things that I really wanted to do, I thought, I want to capture something as it is happening so that we don't have to have people recount the past, but we're living it.
Mm-hmm.
We're living it as the present, right? So it was the first time that I got to really do that. And I really, truly, and honestly enjoyed it. But I also figured out with Teta that I needed to sort of work, like expand my collaboration, that it's, yes, for this very small intimate film, it was fine for me to direct and write and edit, like great, and my husband does the cinematography, but if I wanted to really spread my wings as a filmmaker, I needed to bring in other professionals who, so I'm working on a film right now called The Family of Stories, which is about my dad's disappearance in the Venezuelan Amazon when I was 6 years old, and how that, his disappearance and then my search for him and all the secrets I uncovered, about him and my family and myself, really transformed my life. And for that film, which we started filming in 2004 for it, but we've really only been working on it since 2016. I've brought in, like a whole set of amazing Latin American filmmakers. I have an editor, I have a producer, I have an associate producer, I have a composer, I have like people who understand the industry and storytelling so much better than I do, or differently, that our voices really work together. So yeah, I mean, I feel like Teta was this moment where I was able to see the power of what an intimate story can be, but also to say, okay, if you got to step up your game and then work with other people who are at the top of their games and see what they bring. So that's how I've changed since then. I've sort of broadened my collaboration network.
Yeah.
And I've learned so much from these other incredible human beings that I'm working with. And it's such a beautiful, transformative experience. So, yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, I mean, that's definitely, I could definitely relate to that because I've had both experiences, and I started out very much like yourself, also just kind of doing it with a camera and a friend. And then, scripting it around a real life experience, and making a narrative. But, and then moving on in the transition and the, learning pain that, that goes along with that. And then coming into a place where, oh, okay, this is really the dynamics that it takes to create a healthy working environment across professionals. And this is, and that's just, again, very much like a relationship, like a bond, like the trust, all that goes into making this collaborative experience. So having kind of framed it in that context, And as you're evolving and in it right now, what are, can you offer some key kind of insights or epiphanies or things that you've really gotten like and been like, yeah, oh yeah, uh-huh.
Oh my God, yeah. I think what you want to do. So filmmaking is at heart a collaborative art, right? Like that's the thing that's so exciting about it, that you have all these people coming together to make something. And unlike collaborations in academia and writing, which is the other thing that I do, these people tend to have very different sets of trainings, right? Like when I collaborate with another person in my field, which is rhetoric, we're both rhetoricians with very similar training, sort of being like, all right, let's do something together. But in film, you have people who, an editor has a completely different training than a producer does, right? Or than a composer, and they have different sets of skills. So for me, what I've really gotten a kick out of is sort of hiring the people that I trust the most and that I have to like them, and then letting them do the thing that they do well with, yes, we converse and I say, well, this is my vision. And they're like, well, this is my vision. And then how can we bring those visions together to create something? But just for me, I feel like my creative abilities have been transformed by letting really brilliant people who are really good at what they do and who have very different training from me bring their best to the project, and staying out of their way within reason and letting it just sort of simmer. And I mean, it's one of the most like delightful things that I've ever done, as an intellectual, as a creative, as anything, as a human being, just collaborating with these incredible people and letting them.
Yeah, yeah,
Wow.
that's beautiful. I mean, it really is, trusting the process is an amazing thing when you allow that to unfold in front of your eyes, and it's wonderful. That's great. Well, thank you so much, Alexandra Hidalgo. Teta is the film. It was a pleasure to have you on the show. Thank you so much.
Wonderful to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I'll talk to you later. Bye bye. We'll keep you posted.
All right.